You know, when we think about the people who truly shaped history, we often think of emperors and generals. But what if I told you that a pair of twins, born right as the Roman Empire was crumbling, laid a whole new foundation for Western civilization? This is the incredible story of Benedict and Scholastica, and how their shared vision, well, it literally changed the world. So here they are, St. Benedict and his twin sister, St. Scholastica. Their stories are just so deeply intertwined, you really can't tell one without the other. And understanding this incredible spiritual bond they shared, that's the key to their immense legacy. All right, so here's our plan. We'll start with their shared beginning as the saintly twins. Then we're going to follow Benedict's path and really unpack his world-changing rule for life. From there, we'll explore Scholastica's own sacred calling, witness their miraculous final meeting, and finally, try to grasp their absolutely enduring legacy. Okay, let's set the scene. We're in Nursia, Italy, and the year is 480 AD. The Roman Empire has just fallen and things are chaotic. Into this world, Benedict and Scholastica are born to a noble Christian family. Now, they were set up for a life of privilege, but they chose a completely different path. From the very beginning, they had this intense spiritual connection. It was a bond that led them down these parallel paths. Benedict went on to found monasteries for men, and, inspired by his work, Scholastica established the very first convents for Benedictine nuns. You see, together they were building a whole new spiritual framework for a world that was pretty much in chaos. To really get a handle on their impact, we've got to follow Benedict's journey first. As a young nobleman, he gets sent to Rome to study. But what he found there, it just completely repulsed him. And that disillusionment, it became the catalyst for his entire life's work. So around the year 500, he just walks away from it all, his studies, the city, and retreats to a cave in Subiaco to live as a hermit. But his reputation for holiness starts to grow. Pretty soon he's founding one monastery after another, and it all culminates in his masterpiece, the Great Abbey at Monte Cassino, which he established in 529. But look, his path was anything but easy. When a nearby monastery asked him to be their abbot, his insistence on discipline was so strict that the monks literally tried to poison him. It's a pretty stark reminder that when you're forging a new path, you're going to face some serious resistance. He miraculously survived that attempt on his life, left that place, and eventually founded his most famous monastery, Monte Cassino. This incredible mountaintop abbey became the epicenter of a movement that would just explode across all of Europe. So what was it that made Benedict's vision so powerful? The answer really lies in a single document, the Rule of Saint Benedict. And this wasn't just some dry set of regulations. It was a revolutionary blueprint for how to live together in community. The core principle is captured perfectly in this motto, ora et labora, which means pray and work. You see, unlike the extreme, punishing lifestyles of earlier monks, Benedict's rule created a balanced, sustainable model for life. It was a rhythm of prayer, manual labor, and communal living that turned out to be incredibly resilient. At the very heart of his rule is this idea of a ladder to heaven through humility. It starts with the fear of God, but then it progresses through steps like obedience and patience until, and this is so crucial, you're acting not out of fear, but out of pure love. It's a really profound psychological and spiritual journey. And one of the most radical ideas in the whole rule was hospitality. Monasteries were instructed to welcome all guests, travelers, the poor, the sick, as if they were welcoming Christ himself. And get this, it had this kind of democratic vibe to it. The abbot, the leader, had to consult everyone on big decisions, even the youngest monk in the room. And then there was the vow of permanence. Committing for life, that was a huge deal. In a world that was falling apart, this single principle turned these monasteries into vital centers of charity, learning, and refuge for everyone. All right, now let's turn to Benedict's twin. While he was out there building these communities for men, Scholastica felt that his vocation, as she put it, called out to her as well. Scholastica had dedicated herself to a spiritual life from a very young age, so when Benedict established his rule, she immediately saw its potential for women too. She adopted it and founded the very first convent of Benedictine nuns just a few miles from her brother's monastery. She was establishing a vital spiritual community for women that would also spread all across Europe. This brings us to the emotional peak of their story, their final meeting. It is such a powerful and deeply human moment, and it just reveals everything about the depth of their bond. Now, because of the strict rules they both lived by, they could only meet once a year. Think about that. A whole year of thoughts, prayers, and ideas had to be saved for a single day of conversation. It made these meetings unbelievably precious. So on their final visit, as night started to fall, Benedict got ready to leave. But Scholastica, feeling like this might be their last time together, begged him to stay and continue their talk about God through the night. But Benedict, ever the rule keeper, refused. He said, "I simply cannot stay outside my cell." And what happened next is the stuff of legend. Scholastica bowed her head and prayed. And instantly, a violent thunderstorm just erupted out of nowhere, so fierce that it was impossible for Benedict and his monks to leave. God had answered her prayer for one more conversation. They spent the entire night in holy conversation. And then, 3 days later, back in his own monastery, Benedict looked up and had a vision. He saw his sister's soul rising to heaven in the form of a white dove. Their final meeting was complete. So what did all of this lead to? I mean, their personal story is so powerful, but their shared legacy, it's truly immeasurable. Okay, get ready for this number. By the 14th century, it's estimated there were 37,000 Benedictine monasteries across Europe. Let that sink in for a second. 37,000. This wasn't just a religious movement. This was a vast cultural and social network that preserved knowledge and provided essential structure for the entire Middle Ages. And the sheer scale of their influence on the church is just staggering. The order they founded has produced 24 popes, thousands of bishops, and over 1,500 canonized saints. Their simple blueprint for community life went on to shape leadership for centuries to come. After she died, Benedict had his sister's body brought to his monastery and placed in the very tomb he had prepared for himself. He died just a few years later and was laid to rest right beside her. United in life by their mission, they remain united in death at Monte Cassino. Theirs is a story of two separate paths, guided by a single, powerful vision that reshaped an entire continent. And it leaves us with a really big question, doesn't it? What does the story of these spiritual twins teach us about the incredible, world-changing power of a shared purpose?